Why hello there everyone, welcome to week number 3 of the CMPG 214/ITRW315 course. I think we've all kind of settled now and we're getting into the swing of things in the semester. This is going to be a really quick, uncut, unedited, rough, dirty, rof and onbeskof recording. I'm just going to take you through the Adobe Spark page just so you know exactly what to focus on, and maybe for those of you who missed class, just to sort of have some direction. Alright, so as you can see on the page, it deals with study unit 2 and study unit 10. There is a foreword again. Please look at those links, study them, make sure you know what's in those articles and resources. Again, for study unit 2, you need approximately 4 hours to master the study unit. The focus of this SU is dealing with what makes us unique as human beings and as people, in that we can think about our own thought processes and how we think. Wow, inception, right? We can think and decide about behavior after something has happened to us, and we can largely detach ourselves from a situation in which we find ourselves. So if your will is strong enough, you can sort of separate yourself from what's happening to you, but you always have the ability to choose how to react to things. We can thus act proactively by deliberately taking responsibility for things over which we can exert control, and in this way extend our sphere of influence. We'll hear about the circle of influence later in the study unit. We must, however, remember that we must bear the consequences of our actions and the decisions we make. So you'll see that self-awareness is a big theme in the study unit, and that we, looking at our perceptions and our paradigms, we need to become more self-aware so we can see ourselves truly as we are and how other people see us. This affects not only our attitudes and behaviors, but how we see other people. That could help in the workplace, right? You need to be able to see yourself and others to relate well to them, to communicate effectively, right? So this is Covey, pages 65 to 94, and the learning outcomes are as follows. Upon completion of this study unit, you should be able to describe a model for proactivity, apply the proactive approach to behavior in everyday life. So that'll be practical questions in exams and tests, sort of applying how being proactive could benefit you or potentially solve a problem. Make use of proactive language. You will see that there is both proactive and reactive language and people and ways to behave. Be aware of your circle of concern and your circle of influence, and how to expand your circle of influence. So ways to actually ensure that your influence and your circle becomes bigger and more influential with time. Make decisions and take responsibility for your consequences, and keep promises to yourselves and others. Great. Okay, so the study involves Covey's first habit, which is be proactive. Okay, if we think about being proactive, we need to think of the opposite first. Have you procrastinated before? Have you ever said to yourself, I will do that really important thing tomorrow, it can wait, I'm going to take a nap, right? We need to be truthful with ourselves, and we know that we sometimes focus energy and time on the wrong things. So what I'd like you to do is take this procrastination test, and feel free to share what your results are in the chat room on Ifundi. There are a couple videos here. I'm not going to show them now. I will show one or two in class. Please make sure you watch them. Once you sort of know what procrastination is, we need to start working with ways to stop doing that. Alright, so watch those videos. Again, the important concepts for this study unit are the social mirror, genetic, psychic, and environmental determinism, the stimulus response model, and how that sort of influences the proactivity model, taking initiative, and then your circle of concern and your circle of influence. Right. Okay, so the social mirror basically describes how others around us see us. So they're projecting a vision of ourselves onto us. But Covey says it's often distorted because these are the views of others. These are the perceptions of others around us, right? And this projection that's being shown to us includes our own character flaws and weaknesses. So the mirrored image that's coming back to us is distorted because it's based on others' input, right? This quote here is great. The world is your mirror. It shows what others are projecting onto us, including their own character flaws and weaknesses. So looking at their character ethic, it's dealing with that projected onto us. If the only vision we have of ourselves comes from the social mirror, and here's the definition of social mirror, the current social paradigm, from the opinion of others, their perceptions and paradigms of those people around us, our view of ourselves is like the reflection in a crazy mirror room at the carnival. So have you ever been to the circus and seen these crazy, wacky mirrors, and you see yourself and you're taller or skinnier or fatter, or yeah, it's a very distorted image. And Covey says self-awareness enables us to stand apart and examine the way we actually see ourselves, and not just the projections of others onto us. So our self-paradigm is the most fundamental paradigm of effectiveness. So you should think about things like, are your perceptions paradigms determined by your conditions and your social conditioning, so your environment? And like Covey says, these are often disjointed and out of proportion. So they're molded by our environments, right? So to help us sort of build a picture of ourselves and become more self-aware, Covey says we need to understand that there are three social maps. And these social maps are theories of determinism, which have been used for a long time now to discover the nature of man and mankind. And these are genetic, psychic, and environmental determinism. So that's just a class assignment we will be doing in class. Everyone will be pulling wacky faces and distorting one another. Yes, genetic determinism is a theory that explains how our grandparents and our forefathers played a huge role in shaping exactly who we are as we present ourselves today. And this also shapes the vision others have of us. So if you are quick to anger, for example, here, your grandparents would typically have had short tempers, short fuse. And it all comes down to your DNA. So genetic deals with DNA. These traits are hereditary and inherited from our forefathers. So look here, moreover, you may be Zulu, and that is just the perceived nature of Zulu people. So people might start to think, oh no, Zulu people are aggressive, but it's actually just one family history, one line. Do you have any traits that you would sort of say originated from your grandparents or great-grandparents? If so, can you name them? Okay, psychic determinism is a bit different from genetic determinism in that this more deals with your childhood experiences, okay, and what you remember of them. So do you remember being a child? Do you have any fond memories of your parents or home life when you were little? This theory offers that your childhood experience and upbringing laid out your personal tendencies and your character structure. For example, you may feel guilty if you make a mistake because you remember the emotional scripting when you were vulnerable, tender, and dependent on your parents or parental figures deep down inside. You remember the emotional punishment, rejection, or comparison with somebody else when you did not perform as well as expected. So basically, Covey says, your parents did it to you. So if genetic determinism says your forefathers, great-grandparents, grandparents did it to you, psychic determinism says your immediate family did it to you. So your parents did it to you. Can you recall any childhood experiences that shaped who you are and what you stand for? Finally, we have environmental determinism. So this is where the vicinity, your milieu, the place around you, your environment determines who you are and who you become. So think of, does your boss at your part-time job give you hell about the smallest issues? Like, does he bite your head off for something small? This example illustrates how. So basically, someone or something in your environment is responsible for your situation. So genetic, grandparents, forefathers; psychic, parents, guardians; environmental, where you are, your vicinity. So for instance, if the government in your country does not meet or exceed your expectations or partakes in shady dealings you deem unacceptable, you will be less inclined to talk favorably about the party in question, and you will typically speak to others and sort of shoot that party down, right? their behavior and actions have affected you and your outlook on politics in general, right? That's just a very broad example. Now, like I said earlier, we all have the freedom to choose how we respond to a situation. Every stimulus has a response. So typically, if you think of communication, people like to think it's one way. So I'm sending a message to you right now, but it's actually always two-way. It's reciprocal because you're responding, maybe physiologically. So where you are at home right now, if you're watching this, you may be squirming. You're like, damn, you just want this video to end. That's a response that you're sending to me. So we have the freedom to choose how we respond to a situation, right? And we can discover our internal power and really, unlock our potential through our self-awareness. So we need to become self-aware, using our imagination, applying the real abilities of our conscience, and using our independent will to choose from an array of responses, right? Now that we know that we are presented with stimuli to which we respond, we must take into account that we are responsible for our own lives because of our power to choose how we respond to stimulus. Okay, again, this is just a reflective exercise. Please do this. This is good preparation for exams. All right, so now we need to choose to respond. We need to respond to the right stuff. So we need to be able to selectively choose stimuli that are worth our time and energy, right? This is how we beat procrastination, right? So this is a great video, really funny. I suggest you have a look. And he basically just says, write it down. Start with lists of things you want to get done every day. Start small, start with 3 things, because good things come in threes. And yeah, that's some basic good advice that I suggest all of us take into account. We've got a quick quiz down there. You can do it for fun. A class assessment we're going to be doing, it is informal, it doesn't count for marks, so relax, all of you who missed that. Right. Then the real important piece of the study unit. Again, the study unit deals with the first habit, which is be proactive. And the proactivity model basically describes everything Covey's trying to tell us about becoming more proactive in our daily lives, right? So we basically presented with stimulus. We have the freedom to choose what our response will be, right? If you want to be successful, you should never blame your circumstances, conditions, or conditioning for your behavior. So you can't really sit there and blame the determinism theories we discussed above for how you behave. Proactive people can recognize that their behavior is a product of their own choices based on their values, right? Rather than a product of their conditions based on feelings, right? So it's kind of a fact over feelings kind of debate. We may be proactive by nature, yet we often allow people or things to control us. Then we become reactive. Can you differentiate between proactive and reactive? Where do you lie on that spectrum, right? Our innate, basic nature is to act and not be acted upon. So you could see some people typically respond in strange ways when they're being acted upon, right? Taking initiative, this is a DIY section, so this is a do-it-yourself section. Please look up how to take initiative. That's all I'm going to say on that. Circle of concern and circle of influence. If we become proactive and we have a proactive focus in our lives, the positive initiative-taking energy that surrounds us enlarges our circle of influence. Due to us knowing that we neither act or acted upon, we choose responses and check our language to expand the circle. We should adopt a proactive focus to lessen negative energy in our immediate or distant environments. The image below depicts the exact opposite, a reactive focus, which diminishes our circle of influence. So we have a proactive focus. You can see that our circle of concern, the dark blue, shrinks when our circle of influence expands, and the opposite is true when we have negative energy reducing our circle of influence. So again, think of the things that we do have an influence over, things like our mood, our personal health, our habits, our choice of work, Often that might not be the case. Sometimes we have to work wherever we can. Life is difficult that way sometimes. And there are also things outside of our control. Things like weather, public transport, and other people's weaknesses, or oftentimes their views as well. So if you think of the things we can influence, those lie within our circle of influence. If we focus positive energy on these things, our circle of influence will expand. And obviously, if we focus on the things outside of control, the negative energy will reduce our circle of influence, right? There is also a language of proactivity and a language of reactivity. So, for example, proactive people say things like, let's look for alternatives, I can control my own feelings, I choose, I prefer, I will. Very positive language. Reactive people, on the other hand, say there's nothing I can do. That's just the way I am. If only, I can't, I must, right? Very, very downtrodden sort of language, right? That's a reactive type of language. Study Unit 10 deals with presentations and presentation skills. You need to know how to plan and prepare an oral presentation and a PowerPoint slideshow. This study unit is dealt with assignment 1, which will be issued next week, week 4. You need to understand the requirements of an oral presentation. You need to know how an oral presentation is evaluated, the 10 steps on how to deliver an oral presentation, and know how they are evaluated and the reasons for them, right? So these are the important concepts I've highlighted. The topics and situations for oral presentations, I'm not going to go into them now. This is all self-study. It's not a lot of work. And I've put in a video near the end just to sort of summarize things and get you started, right? So there's the planning, the preparation, and delivering. All right, that is it for this week's video. I will see you all in class, or I will see you on the interwebs. Rock on.